A short rule explanation for those who are interested in what's behind Darwin's choice. In a nutshell, Darwin's choice is about creating well-adapted animals and to let them survive till the end of the game. It sounds easier than it is, as you will compete against your friends and your animals are constantly exposed to changes and difficult situations. Normally, you play 4 so-called eras. An era goes on until no more action can be carried out by the players, but as the game is very modular, you can also choose to play a shorter version of 3 eras. The components of the game. In Darwin's choice, you have 6 types of cards. The event cards, the small and large animal cards, the vegetation zones, the number cards, and the overview cards. First, about the event cards. Event cards will have an influence on the upcoming era. They can have an immediate effect, such as killing all animals without any swim, climb, or flying symbols. They can also change the food distribution or lead to the exchange of certain vegetation zones. Then you have the animal cards. There are big animal cards and small animal cards. In the pile of the big animal cards you will find double legs and bodies. Some of them are already finished and don't have many docking sites, while others give you many possibilities to add other cards to them. Within the small animal cards you will find all other parts of an animal. You find heads, wings, tails, and single leg cards. Now about the symbols. There are 6 different attribute symbols: swimming, climbing, walking, flying, heat resistance, and cold resistance. Additionally, there is the competitive strength symbol. It represents how strong and intelligent an animal is. On the heads, you will find a meat symbol indicating carnivores, a plant symbol for herbivores, or both for omnivores. The hearts on the animal cards indicate how much food they need in order to survive. So if you build an animal with 3 hearts, it needs 3 food chips. It also shows how much food it provides in the case it gets eaten. Normally, all head cards have a heart, but you will find some with the symbiotic symbol on their head, indicating the head has no heart symbol. So technically, you can build small animals that don't need any food and therefore won't starve. On some body cards, you will also find a digging or poisonous symbol, which signifies that the animal cannot be eaten as it can hide under the ground or is simply not eatable due to the poison. Those created animals you put into vegetation zones, the 4th type of card. On the top right, you see the name of the vegetation zone. In this case, it would be the ocean. In brackets, you find how much Darwin points you get if you win the zone. In the left corner, the amount of food that is available is indicated. In the middle, it's shown what symbol determines the adaptiveness. On the right side, the requirements are indicated. In some vegetation zones, they are separated by a slash, which basically means that the animal species has only to fulfill one of the listed requirements. Then there are the number cards. They are used to determine which vegetation zone gets affected by a change or an event card. The last type of cards are the overview cards, where the most important information and rules of Darwin's choice is summed up. Then you have the Darwin points, which you will need in order to win the game, food chips in form of plant and meat chips, competition chips that indicates which 3 animals have the most competition points, the number chips 1 to 5 corresponding to the number cards, the start player marker, and the player markers in different colors. Now about the gameplay. So in the beginning of the game, each player draws 10 animal cards. You can choose freely from which pile you would like to draw your cards. When everyone has drawn their cards, we move on to the action phase of an era. There are 3 main actions and 2 additional action possibilities. The 3 main actions are building, mutating, and migrating. The 2 additional action possibilities are trading and redrawing of cards. First, about building an animal. To build an animal, you need at least a head and a body. Additionally, you have to place all cards at once, and the animal cards have to be placed in such a manner that the name is always written horizontally. So you cannot put a leg as a tail. Otherwise, there are not many restrictions. About the mutation. There are 3 different types of mutations. You can either add a card to an animal, remove one, or exchange an animal card. You also have the possibility to perform a double mutation in exchange for up to 3 Darwin points laying on the animal. Double mutations have to be performed in a single turn. The third main action is migrating. This is very easy to explain, as it means that you can move an animal from one vegetation zone into any other vegetation zone. But species can only migrate into other vegetation zones where they currently meet the requirements and are able to obtain enough food for themselves. Those were the 3 main actions, but you should definitely keep in mind that an animal can only do 1 main action per era. You can't build an animal and mutate it in the same era. For that reason, the player markers have 2 different sides, where one side is blank and the other has a tick to indicate that an animal has done its action for the current era. Regarding the 2 additional action possibilities, first, the trading. Trading animal cards takes simultaneously place to the main action and is not considered as a turn. You can exchange as many cards as you want, and trading is always done disclosed. If you are playing with a group of players that don't like to trade with each other, you can choose the strategic variant with a trading zone. In this version, you can exchange one card in your turn against another laying on the trading zone. The second possibility you have is redrawing of cards. At the beginning of an era, you can choose to discard all cards except one and draw 9 new cards. But you can only do this as long as your hand card remains unchanged and you did not perform any other actions. When every player cannot perform any actions anymore and passed, the action phase is finished and the evaluation phase starts. In the beginning of the evaluation phase, the requirements of all species get checked. All species that do not fulfill the requirements die. The second thing that gets controlled is if each animal gets enough food. If an herbivore does not obtain enough food, it will immediately die. In case of a carnivore, however, the animal is able to eat a same or less well adapted herbivore or omnivore as long as it has at least the same amount of competitive strength. All animals that are still alive get 1 Darwin point. The animals that win a vegetation zone by having the most adaptive points in the corresponding vegetation zone will get the points indicated in the brackets of the zone. The third way to obtain points is by building animals with a lot of competitive strength. The 3 animals with the highest competitive strength over all vegetation zones obtain additional Darwin points. The animal with the highest competitive strength gets 3 points, the second 2 points, and the third placed 1 point. This allows you to follow a different strategy than only focusing on adaptiveness. All the points that get distributed stay on the animal and, now listen carefully, if your animal dies, it will automatically lose all its points up to 1. After the evaluation phase, the transition phase will start. First, you draw and execute the corresponding event card. Then, a certain amount of vegetation zones get exchanged. The new vegetation zones get assigned by drawing the number cards. Then, you switch the amount of food in the new vegetation zones that got drawn and arrange the animals in that new zone according to their adaptiveness. All player markers get turned to the side without the tick. Then each player can draw his hand cards up to 10 again, and the starting player changes clockwise, and a new era starts. The game ends after the evaluation phase of the last era. Each player can then collect the points on his animals, and the player with the most Darwin points wins the game.